Even if you don't know a law enforcement officer, they all feel a little bit like family. Only another peace officer understands your daily struggles and the work that you do.
6 headquarters.
Brian Eubanks lived in Newcomers Town with his wife. He had been a police officer for about 12 years.
Go ahead, 6. I've been shot.
You get the sick feeling to your stomach.
I'm thinking the worst. They never know what they're getting into when they pull over that car.
I'm shot in the arm, maybe in the chest.
You trust the police officer, is not suspected in any way that this could be a false report.
Headquarters going to be 2 white males. Passenger is armed. Passenger has a vest on. Looks like a K9 or utility vest. He has a vest on.
Those first statements did make us a bit suspicious because the detail he gave didn't seem terribly realistic of someone who just walked up on a car in a traffic stop.
I believe the passenger is going to be Chad Gilliam.
Chaz called and reached out to Newcomers Town Police Department. He told me he was coming to me. He wanted to speak to me.
A manhunt is underway right now for 2 men after a suspect shoots a police officer in eastern Ohio.
No, I think he was shooting to kill me because the gun was originally pointed at my face and I moved.
And going out and giving interviews, there's something wrong.
Brian's story is that there was another car there, but nobody else saw it. There are people who stage scenes that we think of as narrators or fabricators who want to say so much that it's like they're overdoing it.
I would not shoot myself, especially at work.
We become very good at understanding truthful people versus people who are not being truthful.
Tuscarawas County is a lot of rolling Appalachian foothill territory. It has 2 big cities, Dover and New Philadelphia, which are adjacent, and villages. But a lot of the area is rural, farmland.
People are going to laugh and think I'm a bit biased when I say this, but it's a county of about 93,000 people, and I think it's the greatest place to live in the world. Everybody just really kind of looks out for each other. It's a great county. If you've lived here a long time and, it doesn't feel as safe as it used to. I still think this is an extremely safe area to raise your family, and I love that, my family does live here.
Newcomers Town is the best kept secret in Tuscarawas County. It's not the most glamorous town. Population a little under 5,000 people, but they are very core group of people that live there that are very community oriented, and their sports programs, and for being a smaller area, the community really comes together for one another. I would say our overall crime rate is very low, and the people here get along very well and feel more like family with everybody. Being as small as it was with the village, though they had 5 or 6 police officers, they do know one another. Everybody knows everybody in Newcomers Town. And the officers there were well known by the community members.
My sense about Newcomers Town is that the people there are familiar with each other. They know each other a lot from their backgrounds. They went to school together. I don't feel that it's a place where a lot of people rush in and move in, or a lot of people move out. I don't think anyone moves to Newcomers Town because they expect to be rich and famous there. I think a lot of the people there have family there. They grew up there. I think a lot of family and social relationships bind that community. People are close, and as a result of being close, having gone to school together, having known each other for so long and knowing each other's relatives, I think they're very trusting people.
The sheriff is the chief law enforcement official of the county. We have jurisdiction everywhere on all property. That's what's unique about us. There are cities and villages that also have police agencies, and they have jurisdiction within your town, but the sheriff covers all of those. And we're brought into many of those communities all the time for different types of crimes. In Ohio, a village is a town that has a population less than 5,000. So I think Newcomers Town is around 3,700. It's a great little community. The people that grew up there and live there have a lot of pride in it. They basically handle all the basic calls that they get in the village.
The pay for a Newcomerstown police officer was quite low, and so I imagine that people there are there because they have a feeling of attachment to the community. I certainly don't feel that in Newcomerstown it was one of those places where police are very afraid of the community and the community is hostile toward the police. I always felt that they had the support of the community.
Six headquarters. I'm attempting to make a traffic stop on here. It's going to be looks like a black Geo Tracker. It's all black. No plates visible on it.
Brian Eubanks lived in Newcomerstown with his wife. He had been a police officer for about 12 years and was a very respected member of his community.
And we're stopping here. We'll be right at the bridge, South River, right at the court. You're clear. 10:07.
Even if you don't know a law enforcement officer, they all feel a little bit like family. You know, you've all committed to these oaths. Only another peace officer understands your daily struggles and the work that you do.
Six headquarters. Go ahead, six. I've been shot.
You get the sick feeling to your stomach. You almost want to tear up because you think of them immediately and the harm that would cause to them and what they would be without their family. That's my first impression every time I ever hear of an officer being shot or an officer down. We all fear that call. We've all embraced with our families at home. If that ever happens, the sheriff ever shows up at your doorstep, emotionally, you've been set up for that to understand what's going on.
Of course, we're heading out. Johnson Ridge. I'm shot in the arm, maybe in the chest.
Many of my earliest memories about listening to the news and reading the news are about law enforcement officers being killed when they pull somebody over for a traffic violation or somebody who's wanted on a warrant. And so I feared the worst.
Headquarters, I'm losing power in my car here. It won't shift. Headquarters, I lost. I'm going up the hill here. I'm going to have to stop. Advise them I'm going to turn back towards town.
When the call came in, when I was told by dispatch what had happened, that there was an officer that was shot, that is an all call. So the office here, surrounding agencies, other federal agencies, state agencies, local agencies, we had an onslaught of people trying to come or requesting to come assist if needed.
We were given a description of a vehicle, which was a black Geo Chevy Tracker. And we, began to comb the area for that. We began searching databases to see what would mine. And that's where the community came in too, because almost immediately we started getting calls.
They issued a blue alert, which means that everyone in the nearby community and nearby area need to be on the lookout for somebody who's armed, someone who's potentially dangerous. So not only were they terrified the cop had just been shot, they were also terrified that maybe something could happen to them. He's going to be capable of shooting anybody. He's going to be capable of hurting anybody else if they were willing to risk something that intense.
There is someone incredibly dangerous, at least as far as they know, out there, still uncaught. The quicker that the person is apprehended, the quicker that the community can calm down and not be on the edge.
When people hear that a police officer has been shot, they're upset, angry, afraid. They'll come together in a protective way, and they'll want to make sure this person who did this is caught and justly punished. You trust the police officer. There's a reason they went into law enforcement. That's to help people, to keep public safety. So an officer who's calling in that he's been shot is not suspected in any way that this could be a false report.
Headquarters, I'm going to give you some information real quick. Headquarters, going to be 2 white males. Passenger is armed. Passenger has a vest on. It looks like a K9 or utility vest. He has a vest on. There's also, looks like, 4 bottles of a moving lab in the back seat.
I didn't count the cars, but it certainly felt to me like every law enforcement agency in the region was involved in trying to find the shooter, because Officer Eubanks gave a description of the vehicle, of the suspect, of what was in the vehicle. For all they knew, they had a crazy cop killer on the loose.
They have personal stake for 2 reasons. One is because the victim is one of their own. It's one of their coworkers. And 2, it's because they need to immediately protect the public.
Whenever I have covered a shooting in Newcomerstown, it captivates the entire population immediately and totally. It quite filled everyone's consciousness at the time, I feel.
Also, headquarters, the passenger has a lime green t-shirt on underneath the black vest. The driver is going to have a red sweatshirt on. I believe it's going to be an Under Armour sweatshirt. I believe they both have blue jeans on. That's all I could see. There is another weapon in the back seat. Looks like a shotgun, all black.
The detail he gave didn't seem terribly realistic of someone who just walked up on a car in a traffic stop. We were far from being completely suspicious of everything. We just thought it was odd that the description given was that detailed.
6 to 1. I believe, I can't be 100% sure, but I believe the passenger is going to be Chad Gilliam. He's also the one that shot me.
Get some photos and address, and let's find out where this Gilliam is.
Chaz Gillian had quite a history. I'd had a prior burglary case with Chaz. I'd had an armed robbery invasion of a home with Chaz. Chaz was somebody that law enforcement knew in the Tri-County area. So with that news breaking that this was Chaz Gillian as being identified early on as the shooter, it spurred quite a response from the 3 sheriff's offices in that area.
It wasn't unrealistic at all to think that he might want to, take a shot at law enforcement. This was a guy who had a social media account where he had posed with guns and body armor before, and he was an individual who definitely portrayed himself as being the opposite of law enforcement.
When you have a named suspect, and this suspect is supposed to have taken a shot or tried to injure a police officer, it's an absolute all search for him. They're not messing around. They're going to do everything in the world to go find him. Again, it's the emotion, right? It's the whole idea that we have to protect each other. So emotions are going to be high. They're going to be doing everything in the world to go find this guy, particularly if he's got a criminal past.
The law enforcement response would have been life-threatening because this person is considered armed and dangerous. He's just shot a police officer. They're not going to go to his house and knock politely on the door. They're going in, SWAT team, guns. They've got a dangerous person here who didn't care if he took the life of a police officer. So it's very possible that he could have been shot.
The chances for things to go wrong are unbelievable. All the cops are heightened. They are anxious, and they want this particular guy. So if the person in the house makes a wrong move, if he opens the door and does anything to cause panic to the police, yeah, there's all kind of stuff that could happen bad.
We ended up locating a home in Coshocton County, inside the city of Coshocton, which is in a neighboring county, and we kind of had watched the house just waiting. When the name got out on social media, It turns out that the suspect was getting phone calls himself that he had been named.
He's going to be anxious. He's going to be scared because he knows now every cop in that area is looking for him. The chances for a mistake are increased because he can be driving down the road, even going to the police station, and if he's stopped, the cops are going to be anxious. All he has to do is make one mistake. Chances are he could get hurt.
He and his girlfriend had started noticing Facebook posts, different posts that were going on in social media. And Chaz called and reached out to New Comerstown Police Department. At that time I was there and I spoke to Chaz by the phone. Chaz was very rattled. This was somebody that I had dealt with several times. He told me he was coming to me. He wanted to speak to me personally, and he was on his way. But cell phone coverage in that area between Coshocton and New Comerstown was very sketchy. He called me at least 2 times with cell phone dropping, telling me he was afraid that if he ran across another law enforcement officer, that they would kill him.
When law enforcement thinks someone has shot one of their own, they will take the measures necessary to apprehend that person. And I think it should be understood that that can be a very volatile situation.
The initial description described the suspects in the car and then a potential methamphetamine lab in the back seat. Methamphetamine is as bad as it gets in the drug world. It makes people extremely violent and act irrationally. Now you take a person who naturally doesn't like law enforcement, who we know has weapons because he posed with them on social media, and now potentially using methamphetamine. You know, you're building up about the worst case scenario. And now you add desperation and paranoia, maybe because he believes law enforcement's out to get him. You don't expect a person like that to just walk out and surrender. And that's where the tension came from. And that's exactly how it felt as we were looking.
Him reaching out meant a lot to me. When he did arrive at the New Comerstown Police Department, I escorted him in. He was still concerned, on the phone with me as he came into the lot, because he was still concerned that other officers were outside. I'm sure he had an envisionment in his head. Once we got him inside, the first things he said to me was, "Detective Moore, I committed every crime you accused me of. I did not commit this crime."
I can honestly say that from his history, I don't believe he had ever cooperated with us, but he was quick to cooperate this day. When he showed up on his own, that was a pretty significant sign to us that he probably wasn't involved, because he had never responded like that before. It was more of a typical cat and mouse. He committed a crime, he fled, we had to prove it, he wasn't going to cooperate, wasn't going to help us do our job. So in this case, him getting to us with such a sense of urgency, that was indicative to us as we had a problem as far as him being the suspect.
That set the tone for my interview with him. He was begging me for help at that point. He was providing me his cell phone information, his girlfriend's cell phone information. Typically, somebody that's committed a crime is about self-preservation. And they'll give you some information, but they won't give you everything, and they only want to give you the stuff that makes them look good. Well, in this situation, it changed. And he gave me everything without me asking for it. He just handed it over to me. So we were able to get those cell phone records rather quickly. We were able to get them to an FBI agent that we work with, and was able to verify that his phone and his girlfriend's phone never left Coshocton County that morning.
Their phones were where they said they were and never left. So while we had someone who was cooperating with us that normally didn't, it's not as though we were going to just take his word. But when we were able to validate that with the cell phone information, we were able to clear him that day, and that was very important for us to move forward.
Once Chaz comes in and really officially clears his name with his alibi, they are really back to square one of, oh my God, how did this happen? Who could have done this? They really had no other suspects in mind.
The first thing that I knew I was able to do was to speak with people who had lunch at a local senior center. They were quite worried. One woman said something like, if someone will shoot a police officer, they'll shoot anyone. I felt what the community felt. I felt fear and apprehension. But of course, you have to go to work, and you can't let your fear overwhelm your ability to do your duty.
When there is a crime like this that really affects the community so deeply, the police want to, solve it as quickly as they can. They want to get someone apprehended. They, want to make sure that the community feels safe again.
There was fear, and there was a willingness to help if they could. So I think people were paying attention. I think people were very alert to what was going on. I think people were paying extra attention to every car that went by, or to their own local school where their kids went to see who was around there. I think there was a good amount of community watch going on, where they were trying to protect their own community by being an extra set of eyes and ears for us.
This community comes together. I remember several people within the community, cookies coming in. I remember 20 or 30 pizzas being delivered, different things where the community outreach was immediate. There was water supplied. There's that immediate community outreach was phenomenal.
A manhunt is underway right now for 2 men after a suspect shoots a police officer in eastern Ohio.
He was sitting there, both hands on the wheel, facing forward. I just got to the door jamb of his vehicle before I was shot. I think he was shooting to kill me, because the gun was originally pointed at my face, and I moved, and then that's how I got shot in the arm. But yeah, he was trying to kill me.
One of the things I would be looking for is the officer's behavior, and going out and giving news media interviews and talking about the incident, and being shown with his bandage and everything. There's something wrong. Because generally officers who have been involved in that type of situation, that's the last thing in the world they want to talk about. Because this is a very traumatic situation if you think about it. Someone is shooting at you. That would have been a red flag to me. The behavior doesn't match what he's saying happened.
I learned that the car that Patrolman Eubanks was driving had the license plate readers on them on that morning. So that was immediate data that I wanted. That data was going to tell me the travel routes of Patrolman Eubanks. It was going to give me license plates of any vehicle he passed. That data was going to be phenomenal in helping me solve this case.
His failure to reveal that is deeply suspicious, in the sense that if he had told his colleagues that, they would immediately have traced all the other vehicles that passed his patrol vehicle at the time. That would have led them to witnesses. Those witnesses may or may not have seen the black Geo. They may or may not have corroborated or contradicted Eubanks' story. And Eubanks must have known his vehicle had a number plate reader. So it makes his account not just not fitting together, but suspicious.
So when you're looking at a license plate reader, it simply takes a photograph of every license plate that comes by at a particular location, and it gives a timestamp. So at this particular time, this license plate went by this particular location. Well, if I have the license plate, I can go run an NCIC check to determine who owns that car.
Upon receiving the data from the license plate reader, we have Patrolman Eubanks stopping right around 10 a.m. on that morning on the bridge at the time of the radio stop, which he broadcast out being on a traffic stop. Within like 41 seconds, the first car drives past his vehicle. That license plate's captured. The second car comes by another 15 seconds or so later. That license plate's captured. And another 30 to 40 seconds later, a third car drives by and that license plate's captured. And that allowed me to go interview these witnesses. And with that, we were able to put together what the witnesses' accounts were. And that really solidified to me at that point that the way this case had been reported was not truthful. Even the injury to his arm did not, it was a very minor injury. It was not consistent with what had been reported.
Nobody saw what was described by Brian. And that becomes a real issue. Brian's story is that there was another car there, and that's how he got shot, but nobody else saw it. That means that there is a real discrepancy between what he's saying, which they're already suspecting because it's overly detailed, and what's being reported by witnesses.
Nobody has seen this vehicle. So now we have to take another step back and say, okay, wait a minute, something's wrong. Now we have to go back and look at it again. We may have to go back and talk to the officer again and say, wait a minute, something's wrong because it's not panning out.
When we are confronted with an incident like this, even a police officer, this would be a traumatic incident. Your memory doesn't retain information in that simple and coherent way. He revealed all this stuff almost right at the outset. Now that in itself is potentially quite suspicious. When people reveal lots of detail very quickly without prompting, it can indicate that they're lying.
They're trying to control the narrative. They're trying to control what everybody thinks about it, and they are so confident of the way they phrase things that everyone will buy into it.
Pretty early on, I had suspicions. Those original descriptions were problematic for me, being just too detailed. And then there's two thoughts. One is, if I begin to believe that this did not happen, then I start to put weight on my own shoulders, where it's extremely important for us to prove that and prosecute it for being made up. The flip side of that is, no matter what I did or what our office did to investigate this correctly, there's going to be a segment of the community who trusts law enforcement just a little bit less now because of something like this. And that's where the real blow is.
When you're dealing with an officer like that and you've come to not believe him, this is very difficult. Police officers are very close. This is the old brotherhood, and it is real. We try to protect each other because when you're out on the road, when you're working, that's all we have is each other. So when you make a determination and when you start looking and you're realizing that this police officer is not telling the truth, there's something wrong, that's a big step.
One of the reasons police are close is they depend on each other to watch my back. I need to know that you have integrity, that you're honest, that you will be there if that starts to crumble in one of the people you're counting on, who you may like and be friends with, and you start to realize he's telling lies. That's pretty devastating for officers, especially a tight-knit unit in a small town.
So the picture had bail, and I did understand what I was looking at that point in time. And I knew I was about to accuse a cop of shooting himself and making this up. So I had to be 1,000% right. I could not have any judgment and error. The only other person in the county that knew my thought process was Sheriff Campbell.
It became an issue of attempting to get the officer to come in here for an interview and not necessarily let him know that, we no longer believed his story at all. So that's a little more complicated than normal. This is a guy who already knows about police interviews. He knows about tactics and things like that. We also likely knew that there was only really one chance we were going to have this interview. This officer knew what the law was, and he knew that if he didn't want to speak to us, he didn't have to. And if we didn't get this admission, from him, that we likely were never going to.
I would not shoot myself, especially at work. For any reason. Not a ricochet, not on purpose, and if I was going to do it, I'd have shot myself in the head. I apologize, it's nothing personal to you, Jeff.
Would you be willing to take a polygraph test?
Yes, I would.
You would take a polygraph?
Yes.
Now, you're not willing to speak to me right now, but you would be willing to take a polygraph?
As of right now, I'd like to take I would. As now I want to speak to my attorney, but yes, I would accept a polygraph, absolutely.
If I could get a polygraph scheduled, in the next hour, you'd be willing to take that polygraph?
Not until I talk to my attorney, but I would.
Sit tight.
If you get a chance, I'd like to talk to my chief, if you would, please.
I'll send the chief in.
Thank you very much. You gotta be kidding me.
As the interview started to unfold, he realized that I was accusing him. So I entered part of my interview at that point in time, and he ultimately wanted to speak with Chief Holland and then spoke with the sheriff.
Every profession has some sort of expertise. The thing with an investigator is it's an intangible that's tough to articulate, but we become very good at understanding truthful people versus people who are not being truthful. Sometimes it's difficult. People think like there's these obvious signs of someone being deceptive, and sometimes there are, but many times there's not. And the only way you can learn whether someone's being deceptive or not is interviewing them enough when they're not being deceptive to see what's normal for them, and then to see when they get away from that. You know, it's kind of a behavioral analysis.
Brian, you've been doing this a long time, just like we have, and you have to understand that what we're trying to do is find the facts
I understand that,
of
Chief.
what's occurred.
I understand that. If I even thought this is what was going on, or if I did something wrong, do you think at one iota that I'd be here?
I don't know, Brian.
No, I would not.
You know, and I know that doesn't always work that way.
I understand that.
We have too many conflicting stories, too many things that aren't matching up, and that's what this whole thing is. We have to answer these questions.
I can't go through and I don't know what else to tell you.
Well,
you don't understand. This has ripped me apart myself.
Okay.
You're gonna have to.
Once you believe that someone's guilty, I think at that point it becomes a battle of they think they just have to keep denying it. But when they can see on your face that you're not buying any of it, that's very defeating to them. When they no longer think they're convincing you of their lies. I think that's what he saw. I think he realized that the gig was up in our mind, and that I had decided that day that this case wasn't going any further, that we were going to get this out to the community, that this didn't take place, whether he admitted or not.
Hey, Brian, come on.
Officer Eubanks was interviewed initially, and he denied the allegations and gave some statements that weren't terribly believable, but had denial. He ended that interview with Detective Moore, and we put him in a conference room, and I spoke to him briefly. And that wasn't part of an official interview. That was just a conversation with him, because I was trying to determine how I was going to move the case forward, whether I was going to arrest him or what I was going to do. But I think he could tell by the fact that I wasn't allowing him to just walk out that we didn't believe him.
After those conversations, he came back in and provided me a further interview.
Brian, I know you've asked for me to come back. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
I know we had a conversation earlier, but we're past that point, and you're asking to speak with me now?
Yes, sir. I went across the bridge. It was raining. I went up to the dirt, turned around, I came back. Sat there for a few minutes. Started raining really hard. I go to the alley, and I passed the black vehicle. The vehicle disappeared. I hurried and I got down the bridge and it was gone. That's when I thought, you've lost it. You lost it. You're out of your mind. So I took my gun. I aimed it towards my face like this. I put my thumbs and on the trigger. I closed my eyes and put my head down. I pulled the trigger.
I need you to put this on paper for me.
He used self-preservation and made up a story that was not believable, but he did admit that he had shot himself. He reported to me in the interview that he thought he was losing his mind. I did not buy that. There was no truth to his statement. He has a history of other issues involving financial issues and marital issues, adulterous issues, and with those, anything that he says becomes unlikely to be true. Even his description that he actually meant to physically harm himself and commit suicide did not line up with his description of how that occurred versus the injury on his arm. There's nothing logical, and when somebody's not being logical, sooner or later, if you tell enough lies, the lies will catch up to you. And he was leading a life of numerous lies.
He could have done it to be able to receive financial compensation from his injuries, so he wouldn't have to work again. He could have done it for notoriety and for sympathy, and he could have done it just because he wants the attention. Unless Mr. Eubanks tells us why he did what he did, we will never know.
And I apologize to my family. I apologize to you and your family and taking up your time, and I didn't mean to do this. I can't explain that, Jeff. To ruin my family like this. My extended family.
I was elated that we at least have an admission. I know that the case is solved, and as of all cases when they're solved, that is a relief.
There aren't very many cases in a county like this where we hold a press conference, but this is one that had taken off on big news in the state, and we did a press conference explaining that the individual had made it up, and I think that was a big relief to the community. I really do.
When the news came out that he was charged with doing this to himself and had lied about it, people just couldn't believe it. I mean, why on earth would he do something like this to himself? And why would he have the whole town up in arms over it?
I think people felt they had been betrayed. It's a community where people trust each other. They are in contact with each other a lot. They went to school together. They intermarry. Their friends become their family members. Their cousins serve on village council with them. And I think to them, this felt like a betrayal.
We all have choices we get to make in life. Whether you make the right choice or the wrong choice is up to you. And if you choose to be a bad actor, if you choose to lie, if you choose to be deceitful, that's on you. What that punishment is at the end of the day, that's not my problem. But you will sooner or later, trying to cover up enough lies, it will backfire.
The case was eventually scheduled before a Tuscarawas County grand jury. He was charged with making up this story, which is a crime, and then later convicted. His sentence was just local jail time. That ended his career forever in law enforcement. He's banned in Ohio from ever being a peace officer again. I think that's something that had to happen, but I think nobody really wins.
What's the saddest thing about this particular case is going to be the public perception. The public has been alarmed because one of their police officers is supposedly shot. They've gone through all this emotional trauma. They've tried to help out, to do everything, and now they find out that it's a lie. The public is going to be, they're going to go from being supportive to be awful upset over what exactly happened. And what makes it even harder in this particular case is the fact that it's a small town. So everybody knows everybody. And he's been there for 12 years. He's probably had a really good reputation, which is why the public is probably upset. And now they find out that That is wrong. All their perceptions were wrong. Yes, it's going to be very difficult for a while.
Mr. Eubanks' actions erode public trust because as the law enforcement officer, we expect him to have a higher integrity. We expect him to act with honesty. And when the public hears about something like this, it essentially erodes trust in all police officers. There may be 100 good ones and one bad one, but he tarnishes the reputation of police officers everywhere by doing this.
I mean, it was a big blow for the police department once Brian, admitted that he did this to himself. The community had a hard time trusting them again. I mean, not only did he set everyone into a state of fear, hunting down one of their community members, they're, worried that maybe that could happen to them.
There's going to be a segment of the population who's always going to think a little bit less of law enforcement, or if another law enforcement officer reports being shot at, they'll bring this case up and it might affect whether they believe them, whether they wholeheartedly try to help like they did in the Eubanks case. The local newspaper had done a story about my first year, and it said how in the first year, while it may not have been the biggest case because there were murders, that it may have been the most important case, because I think that showing the community that we'll hold our own people accountable just like we want to hold others, I think that's really important.
I don't think that Mr. Eubanks realized the ripple effect of his actions. The consequences weren't just for him. He put a lot of people in danger. The suspect he named, that person could have ended up being shot because this person is now basically has a bounty on them for shooting the police officer. That could have happened. He caused statewide panic and a misuse of resources.
For a small bullet wound, it certainly caused a lot of commotion.
This officer was playing on the emotions of every other officer that's out there. Because every single officer was thinking, there but for the grace of God go I, that somebody else could have shot me. Now, what would happen to my family? What would happen to my kids? So he put the entire police department, probably within that entire state, through that. Because now every single one of them are going to have to judge whether or not they're doing the right thing. Is this the right job for them?